I was most lonely when I was most popular. In college, I went to music festivals, modeled, had a situationship with a guy in a band. I was at the peak of my social life and also my most depressed. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stuck in a pit of vipers, unsure of where the next strike would come from. By all external measures, I was thriving, but internally, I felt like I was slowly dying. What if everything we've been told about loneliness is wrong? We commonly hear it's social media, it's capitalism, it's a lack of third spaces. But what if it's something else entirely? Something much deeper and actually more hopeful. In this video, I'm going to pull back the layers to show you what I believe is really behind the loneliness crisis today, why the world feels so off right now, and why it's actually a great sign for the future. This video is divided into 3 sections: a great chef, a cutting CEO, and a point of convergence. Let's go. A few years ago, I watched an episode of the TV show Somebody Feed Phil, the show where former Everybody Loves Raymond writer Phil Rosenthal travels the world eating incredible food. In this episode, Phil was in Barcelona at Albert Adria's restaurant called Tickets. Now, Albert is the brother of Ferran Adria, who was the head chef at what was considered the world's greatest restaurant, El Bulli. It was Albert who was the pastry chef at the restaurant, but together the brothers formed a gastronomic duo that changed the landscape of the culinary world forever. After Tickets, Phil and Albert went on an excursion around the city and ended up at another one of Albert's restaurants called Pacta. But what happened here caught my attention. Albert invited Phil to eat. Naturally, Phil accepted with great enthusiasm. In a dimly lit booth, Phil sat alone waiting for his first dish. Albert returned with a small plate. Seeing Phil's response, Albert got excited and went to get another dish. As I watched this scene unfold, it hit me. Great chefs need great eaters, and great eaters need great chefs. A great chef inevitably asks his eater, "Can you taste what I'm tasting? Can you see that this is good in relationship to other things? Do you see the value of this striving in what has been presented here?" A great eater says, "Yes, I taste it. I may not fully understand how you got here, but the taste is clear and the taste is good, really good." A great chef toils for years. He hones and trusts in his own taste. He tries, he fails, he tries again. Who he is, what he has worked for and accumulated over years, all comes out through his food. But what if he is only surrounded by people who have tasted Baja Blast and McDonald's? A gastronomic marvel like a spherical olive is going to seem foreign, maybe even frightening. The chef's food didn't change. The quality is still there, but without recognition, without someone who can taste what he's tasting. The work goes unreceived and in many ways unfulfilled. A potential reality, the reality of what is truly there, remains hidden because there's no one there to meet it. So what does any of this have to do with the loneliness crisis? This tasting, this discernment isn't just about food. In our modern world, we aren't lacking relationships per se. We're lacking metaphorical palettes, and the consequences of it are enormous. I once knew a young woman who was super smart. One day at her work, a successful local businessman came to meet with the CEO. We'll call her Tammy. Tammy asked if the young woman would come sit in on the meeting. But as the meeting progressed, something interesting happened. Instead of addressing his questions to the CEO, the businessman began to address his questions to the young woman. The meeting went really well, and the guy seemed happy with the information he received. But after the meeting, instead of turning to the young woman with a "well done," the CEO said something along the lines of, "I guess there's another hot blonde in the office." The young woman had demonstrated actual excellence, expertise that this successful business owner recognized and trusted. It was there, observable, real. But instead of seeing what was there and relating to that reality, the CEO didn't. And she didn't just fail to recognize it, she withheld it and replaced it with a reductive, sexualized dismissal. In essence, what you experienced in there had nothing to do with you or your competence, but everything to do with your looks. So there she was in this moment of creative potential to say, "I taste what you're tasting, and what I taste is good." But instead, she denied the expression. She may have won the moment, but she lost the light. And the young woman was left alone. Another guy I once knew was incredibly ambitious. He wanted to be wealthy, retire young, and was willing to endure hours of cold calling and travel to help his company reach its goals. But over time, what once started off as an ambitious guy started to slowly change. He became frustrated but trying, to finally angry and over it. One day he told me what he was looking for: servant leadership. Servant leadership is when the leader's primary goal is to empower the team versus to exercise power over them. In his situation, instead of the CEO turning toward the team, the CEO turned away from the company, trying to further their own personal ambitions while leveraging the company. While there were other executives there who offered nice leadership, weekly talks about values, and he had received a nice desk ornament with the word teamwork on it, he never felt like anyone was genuinely invested in him. This once very ambitious guy is now left alone. Naturally, he walked. He didn't need nice. He didn't need value posters. He needed a leader who was actually invested, a comrade with a shared mission, someone to have his back as he went to bat for them. He could feel the difference between someone acting from a place that says, I want your success as much as I want my own, and I'm going to work to make sure we're all successful at my company, and someone operating from a place of, we want you to do all these things to make us better while giving you abysmal returns. He correctly sensed that there was no actual place for him at the company. It's a bad deal. So why stick around? At the heart of the loneliness crisis, I believe, is a core question. Is there a shared reality of the good that we can both converge on? So when we go back to those two stories of the woman and the man, what we see in both scenarios are missed opportunities. What do I mean by this? In each case, there was someone there who was willing to receive, who was in need of investment and recognition, who wasn't able to actually get that. It's not just something that's off or wrong or bad or inconvenient, or that's just how the world works. It's actually a missed opportunity to create not only connection, but to infuse vitality into a moment, into a relationship, into a situation. Missed opportunities usually come from someone being unable to give what the moment calls for. In the case of the CEO, she saw something enough to have that reaction. The moment really called for her to recognize what was actually there, recognize this young woman, and recognize the young woman's win was her win as well. What she was doing was valuable, that her expertise mattered, that someone saw that too. That's a great thing. So there was a moment where there could have been a building of connection and adding of vitality to the relationship and to the moment that she denied. We experience missed opportunities all the time, and it results in us feeling separate. We feel separate because these missed opportunities essentially tell us we're not accountable to others and others aren't accountable to us. We're not recognized by others and others aren't recognized by us. It keeps us separate because we aren't actually facing each other with the desire to generate the good or to find that point of convergence of the good. So what is this really? If you think, well, the good is kind of arbitrary, how do you ever know if you're doing the good or not doing the good? And it's actually very simple: the golden rule. So we tend to think that the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is just this nice sentiment our kindergarten teacher put on the wall. But it is cosmic. It is baked into reality. And when it gets violated, there are consequences. If I were to ask that CEO woman if she was in that situation, if it would hurt her, the answer would be yes. And yet she did it to the young woman. She denied the golden rule. And because of that, she lost the light. And what's so interesting is, I don't want to harp on this woman, but it's just so rich for teaching. And so I'm just going to share this from a place of, let's just use it to learn from it. So the same woman is a woman who talks about prosperity mindset, abundance mindset, post about women building other women up, invest heavily in mentors and coaches. And yet, in that moment, she displayed what is actually inside of her. What do I mean by this? She can post about women building other women up. She can post about abundance and prosperity. And yet, in everyday life, in a moment where it mattered, where she could demonstrate it, she couldn't. She could not actually give those things. But if she can't give it, it's not in her. She is not that thing. She's not the real thing. And so part of the loneliness crisis, I believe, is that we are surrounded by people who are not the real things. And we are constantly in these missed opportunities where we're reaching out and no one's reaching back, where we're turning to a teacher or we're turning to someone who is supposed to be a leader and we're getting let down over and over and over again. Or we're seeing people who we know are one way and they're posting something else. Everything is a performance. Everything is about maintaining the image. And it's exhausting, right? Who wants to stick around that? Who wants to play that game? And so with the guy was so ambitious. And then he gets into the company. He hears all of these different great things about how they want to invest in him, how he's going to go out and be this go-getter. He's going to bring in and drum up all of these sales. And then he gets into the actual company and he's kind of left alone. He doesn't have comrades. He doesn't have people who are also motivated and motivating. It's a bad deal for him. He's seen the performance. He's seen the slogans. He gets the desk ornament, but he doesn't get the real thing. And so we see all of these bad deals around us when we're asked to participate in zero-sum dynamics, when we're asked to participate in this performative stuff. And we can't actually maintain it. If you were someone with self-respect and integrity, it's going to feel pretty impossible to stay there or to maintain those relationships. It's much easier to just opt out. And we don't only see this in the workplace, we see it touch every relationship. Think about dating, right? You had people going on dates with each other, and it's immediately like, I'm going to be the judge over you, and I'm going to decide whether or not you're worth my time. Where is the human-to-human connection? Where's that accountability? Where is the understanding of the opportunity of the shared good in that moment? Can we get to know each other? Can we talk? Can I try to get a sense of who you are? Or am I going to make it so you have to come to me or else? And is there giving, right? There's this general sense of, I'm going to need you to give this thing to me and then I'll give to you. But that's actually backwards. If you are the real thing, you're able to give it and then you are worthy of receiving it. But we're being taught the opposite. Try to get the thing first and then you'll give it. Once I know you have it and you'll give it to me, then I'm safe enough to give it to you. But it goes against the laws of life, the laws of how things actually work. And so we're kind of starved of the real thing. We're kind of starved of true givers or starved of people with true accountability. And it makes life so much harder. I think of the movie Elf, where there's the choir of the elves and Buddy was in it. And they say, he brought us down a whole octave. That's how I tend to think about these relationships. This isn't fun. This is exhausting. This is frustrating. You're bringing us down a whole octave. And it happens in family when you can't say the hard thing, when everyone agrees that everything needs to be put under the rug, but we're still going to post on social media like we're all really happy. We'd rather the image. All of this leads to this feeling of separation from others, right? We can't get to the good stuff because we don't have a shared understanding of what is good, or our egos are trying to maintain images instead of trying to prioritize truth and genuine connection. In my story, you can see here bad deals and opting out in false systems. So I'll share about my story that I kind of alluded to at the beginning. There was a point in my life where I felt like I was doing everything you should be doing to belong or to reach some sort of sense of, I don't know if it's arrival, but of being okay, of being loved, of being kind of on the inside. I think I lived my entire life feeling like I was on the outside and that I could do what it appeared the culture around me was saying. If you do this, you'll be on the inside, you'll be included, you'll belong. And so I did those things. I was a part of all of these things that would appear to give you value or make you valuable. And still, these people still aren't my friends. And I don't understand it. I'm doing everything that I think is right. And at the same time, everything that was authentic to me, my genuineness, my silliness, my playfulness, all of that stuff, anytime I expressed that, I would get negative, mocking, diminishing comments. And so the message I got kind of was everything that is authentic and true and good about you, when you look healthy, when you feel your best, when you are being silly and happy, that's bad. Don't do that. You should actually give that up if you want to belong. And over time, it just kind of whittled me down until eventually I had this vision of myself where I was banging my head against the wall over and over and over again, expecting things to change. And with that vision and actually some other crazy events, I realized I needed to get out of all of it. And so I ended up dropping off the face of the earth. I was not going to be a part of any of that stuff anymore. I let my world get very, very small. And then I had to start rebuilding my foundation. And luckily, I ended up finding a mentor and ended up finding people who loved all of the things that were beat up before. And so when I really zoom into what we see in the loneliness crisis and what I think is illustrated in the stories that I shared about the woman and the man is this concept of self-want. What do I mean by this? Meaning people tend to want things for themselves, but they stop short of also assuming and recognizing that you probably want those same things for yourself. What do I mean by this? Like I said earlier, the same CEO invested heavily in coaching and mentorship. She wanted it for herself, but when it came to the younger woman, she could not see that desire, which I believe is human, to have someone invest in you, someone help you, help you develop into your potential, was also in the young woman, and that she had an opportunity to give that. She wanted the coach for herself, but she didn't want to give it to others. We go dating, I want you to give to me, but I don't want to give back to you. In family, your experience doesn't actually matter because we'd rather maintain the image. And so there's this sense of self-want. What I want for myself, I want for myself, instead of what I want for myself, I also want for you. This isn't saying we want to decide for other people, or this isn't surface level, we expect everyone to live how we live. This is deeper, fundamental stuff. I want love for myself. I want you to also have love. I want to develop. I understand that it's a human desire to also want to develop and be developed and be invested in. I want to experience the full fruits of my work, like the ambitious guy. I want you to also experience the full fruits of your work. And so there's this separation, and it keeps us out of this golden rule, or love your neighbor as you love yourself. And it creates all of these bad deals. We see all of these false systems. Why would we stick around if we can't get to a shared reality of the good, if we don't understand the benefits of actually being able to give to others, if we don't actually understand the benefits of being able to create that connection with someone else, because the benefits are far beyond that moment, then what motivation is there? It's just me and what I want. Let's return to Phil and Albert, because what I was hoping to show through that story is kind of the end goal. What is the end goal? You have two people who have become their own masters of their own domain, and they are able to give and receive with each other with this joy, this uninhibited joy, this almost a camaraderie, this respect, this sense of, or lack of ego, where they get to actually be present in the moment with each other, and they get to enjoy each other, and they get to experience that genuine abundance of relationship where no one is trying to get from the other, no one is trying to project on the other, no one is trying to hoard or whatever it may be. When we can overcome those lesser desires within us and that lower consciousness within us, we get to experience true joy, true presence, true relationships, the flow and the circuitry of sharing who we are with the world and having that in return. But it takes development on our part, and it takes development on the parts of others. And when we feel surrounded by false things, it's really hard to get to that point. It's really hard to feel like what is in me gets to be expressed here or shared, because there's no one here to meet it. There's no one here to really engage with me. So what do? Instead, we just opt out, or we cope, or we just remain in a state of knowing something's wrong, but not knowing what we can do about it. So now let's turn our attention to what are the actual types of relationships that we need as humans when we are trying to develop. And so much of this comes back to our identity, right? Who we are when we do not feel recognized as a sovereign individual and a naturally good individual. It is hard to feel connected to others and connected to ourselves. Although we can absolutely be connected to ourselves without anyone around us, no one gives us our identity. Our relationships help us fortify our identity. Okay. So there's 3 types of relationships that can help us to feel less alone, and not even less alone, but more like we belong. So what are they? A mentor, a friend, and a co-creator. So what is a mentor? A mentor, first of all, is a real thing. They are someone who has achieved something. They have it in them. And what a mentor does, it could be a business mentor, it could be a spiritual mentor, it could be whoever is further along than you on the path that you're trying to walk. You don't want to walk their path, you want to walk your own path, but they have managed to uncover and create success. They have found the actual principles or the paths that yield results. And so what the mentor does to us and for us is that from that capacity within them, that wisdom within them, do they speak to that potential within us? So in many ways, what they do is they kind of call us out and call us up because they can see a part of themselves in us. They know the path ahead and they can, it's really interesting, but they speak to something within us that makes that reality more possible for us. And they bring that possibility with them. They bring those principles with them. They bring the path with them and they help us in our potential from their place further ahead. The second one is a friend. I think one of the best descriptions of a friend is Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. Samwise Gamgee knows Frodo probably better than Frodo knows himself. And more importantly, he is able to stay connected to who Frodo truly is, despite the crises that Frodo is facing, despite the doubt, despite the fear, despite everything that's going on. Sam remains oriented toward who Frodo really is. And so a friend is someone who loves us at our core. They know us at our core and they love us at our core. And when we're around our friends, we actually feel more like ourselves. For me, I can get caught in my own head and I can feel untethered. And when I get around people who I know truly love the core of me, it's like I get to come home to myself more. I feel more balanced. I feel more grounded because I am orienting myself sort of through this shared field of this friendship. I feel more like myself. I feel genuine. Friends help us stabilize. People help us stabilize our identities in really spectacular ways. And we don't need a ton of friends, but we do need to find someone, and it could even be your spouse, right? Who is able to believe in you and love you for who you are. And I remember actually a few weeks ago, I was working on videos and I started to get really self-conscious and I said something negative about myself and I said it out loud in front of my husband and my husband immediately shut it down. No, you do not get to speak about yourself that way. And he actually got emotional because it's like, you don't get to talk about something that I love in that way. You don't get to talk about something that I think is precious in that way. This is someone who my diminishment, even if I do it to myself, is painful to him. He is a true friend to me. He is a friend to my heart, to my soul. We need friends who won't let us fall, right? Samwise Gamgee says, Mr. Frodo, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you, right? Someone who doesn't look at the surface. And I know you might be thinking, Taylor, that is so rare, but I think that we're going to see more and more people over time realize how important this is and develop themselves into it. So it's not just waiting for the person to arrive, but us developing the ability to be genuine friends to others. So the last one is co-creator. What is a co-creator? A co-creator is the person who knows your struggle, whereas a friend loves you for who you are. A co-creator understands what you do. Let's go back to the chef example. A co-creator for a chef is another chef. They can kind of stand side by side. That person understands the struggle. That person understands that you've sat here and you try to increase your skills. They see the progress and they understand, I can qualify it. I can recognize the value of it. I can sort of affirm your identity in relationship to your doing, your passion, your skills, what you're striving for, what you're trying to achieve. They help fortify us through our actions, through our doing. Can you see how all three of these would really work to fortify our identity, where we can feel stabilized in the center of these relationships, where who we are gets to be a part of it? And we're not constantly in these missed opportunities. We're not constantly in these broken systems where it's people are just trying to take from us, where everything is a misrepresentation, everything gets twisted, everything is hard and difficult and frustrating. Here, we can kind of really be who we are and feel the fortification of that through these relationships. So another part of this is we need people to believe in us and contend with us. Without resistance, a part of us remains dormant. And as we continue to develop that sense of self, as we start to learn more about development, we become the person who recognizes the opportunities for the good around us, and we participate in them. We actually become part of the solution. Okay, so what happens if you don't have any of these relationships? If we don't have these types of relationships, we can absolutely still develop ourselves, but the key is finding quality information and finding real people teaching real things. And so for that, I think it comes down to what are the first principles of relationships? What are the first principles of growth? What are the first principles that trusted people have used to actually generate results in their life? And how can I apply them to my life? But the challenge of that is this, that there is a paradox of identity. What is it? On one hand, we are wholly independent of others to be who we are. And on the other hand, we are wholly interdependent on others in order to express who that is. I like to think of it like this. A king can be a king in his castle, totally content to be alone, but a king only gets to really experience his kingness through his kingdom, by actually being a king in relationship to his kingdom, to his people. And so while we can absolutely develop ourselves, we will also need to test what we develop in our relationships. This doesn't mean that we need to have these three core relationships, but it does mean as we transform, we will naturally also transform how we relate to others. And so that can help us in the loneliness crisis because it gives meaning to our development and to our relationships. Now we're being accountable. Now we're holding ourselves to a higher standard of trying to find the good, of trying to become one of these things to others, of trying to be ourselves more authentically because we know the consequences of the missed opportunity. So we want to be the person who shows up and does the thing. But there is a level of loneliness to that as well, because like Phil and Albert, ultimately we want to get to giving and receiving. That's where the joy happens. We can experience sparks of joy, but if we want to experience sort of like the infinity of joy, that happens through the giving and receiving, where we're really able to express ourselves and we're really able to be received by others and vice versa. But if you aren't able to get to a place where you really truly feel like you're around quality people, you can still apply meaning to your experience through your relationships and how you're showing up and how you're choosing the good and how you're developing your capacity to give and how you're developing your capacity to recognize others. All of that will help start to generate more light for yourself. And that means more joy, more sense of purpose, more sense of connection with yourself, which I believe can be an impetus to finding these things, right? You kind of can become them, and it makes it easier for these types of people to find you because you're doing the work yourself. You're investing in yourself. You're becoming someone these types of people want in their lives because remember, they need them too. Considering everything that we've covered today, I think this tells us something pretty significant about the current state of the world. This is why the world feels so off right now. We're in a battle of worlds. The blueprint of our own identities and morality are pushing up against the structures of this world. We're seeing the bad deals and bad relationships everywhere, and we don't want to participate. And this is why the loneliness crisis is actually a good sign. If we're feeling loneliness, it means we're hungry for something real. And with that hunger and with that pain, hope.